What's up? So I'm back again. I decided I want to make a video about a trying time in my life and a situation and how it affected my relationship with God. Initially for the positive, later for the bad, and then back to the positive. So I was, with this guy. We weren't married. I was not employed at the time, and everything like that, and I found out that I was pregnant. So I went actually to go and see about getting an abortion. So I go to the clinic to try and set it up, and they explained to me that I needed, I don't know, like proof of pregnancy. They had to make sure ultrasound, do all that type of stuff. So as I was coming out, we set the appointment for the next day. As I was leaving out, it was a man out there, and the man blocked me into where I couldn't go, because right outside the door of the place, it was like two big bushes on each side. So he literally cornered and blocked me in. He had this big like board showing like fetuses, babies as they progress in the womb, pictures of other women, children, and stuff like that. So he's blocking me in, and he was, telling me like, God don't agree with abortion, it's murder. I'm like, I already know this. Just leave me alone. Let me go. And, he was just ministering to me that way. And I just kept telling him, like, look, I know that. I didn't want to hear it. That's the other thing. Like, sometimes people, we know what's right and what's wrong, but we choose, like, no, we want to do wrong. So when someone comes telling us the truth and calling us out on it, it just be like, oh, I already know this. I didn't want to hear that, because then it's kind of pitting a roadblock in what you have already planned in your mind and heart that you want to do, that you know is wrong though. So I was getting kind of frustrated and irritated that he was doing that. So then that's when I told him. He's like, well, then why are you still setting up to get an abortion? So then I told him, I'm like, look, I'm not even married to this guy. I don't have a job and everything like that. So then that's when he started going into like, there's plenty of resources out here. Everybody make mistakes. Don't handle the mistake by making a worse decision. Well, not worse, a worse decision than, even ending up pregnant in the first place, being unwed. So he was, giving me all this information about different programs and resources to help women that was in the situation that I was in. So and then he showed me the pictures of the babies, as I stated, of how they look each trimester, like when you're this far along. And then he showed me pictures of other women, and he was telling me, like, women get abortions, they regret it. That's something hard that they have to live with and stuff. And that actually had triggered me back to some instances with some people who I knew who had abortions before. And right, they all had regretted. I promise you, it was not one person who has ever came to me and told me that they had an abortion that did not regret it. It did haunt them, and they did wish that they had kept their child later on, as time went on. So he was mentioning that, and then he was mentioning the people who he ended up stopping from getting an abortion, and he had the pictures of their babies, like, and they so happy, they glad that I, stopped them from doing this and stuff. So after that conversation, finally left, I went to the doctor to actually get on paper, like, okay, that I'm pregnant. So I went to the doctor, and before they did the ultrasound, they was like, okay, here, they put this thing on my stomach to locate and hear the heartbeat. And I am telling you, the moment that I heard that heartbeat, I could not stop smiling. I was just like, you know what? Yes, the only thing that matters to me at this point is this baby. So my feelings about it flipped that fast, because initially I was just fearful and scared of what was the road ahead that I put myself into. And I just wanted to try and alleviate that fear and doubt and worry that I had by terminating and killing a baby, killing my baby just in my womb. So but when I heard that heartbeat, it was just like, oh, heck, this is my child. It's me and you till the wheels fall off. I don't care about nothing else. I don't care about not being married. I don't even care about this dude. I got you, and it's just me and you. And that's how I looked at it at that moment, from hearing that heartbeat. Like, oh, it's a wrap. This is my jewel, and it's all about this jewel. So after that, I immediately, you know, when I got me a job, like, here, let me work so I make sure I'm making my own money and ain't got to worry about this dude if he, you know, flaky or anything like that. Which he wasn't a flaky guy. It was just, I'm just saying, just for my own security. Just making sure everything good, that I can do what I needed to do. And that's what I was doing. And everything was looking up. It actually brought my relationship with God closer. I was praying more. I wanted to be a better person, because all while I'm pregnant, I'm just thinking like, okay, who am I? What kind of mother do I want to be? What kind of woman do I want to be and want to reflect and show to this child? And that was just my whole mindset. So it was actually making me better. I'm reading my Bible more. I'm focused on living for God and everything like that. So when the tragedy happened of his death, a lot of things went on in my mind. One, I felt guilty, and I felt like it was my fault due to the fact that I initially was thinking like, I need to get rid of this baby. So I feel guilty and shame for even thinking that way, feeling that way. I'm like, that's what I get, because I did not know I was about, oh my God. I'm like, that's what I get, you know, because I was going to get rid of him, and now he's gone, and it broke my freaking heart. It broke my world, because at that point, him and God was all I cared about. So I had to deal with that. So I'm just thinking, even, you know, other stuff like, this is just crazy. Then I went through all the stages of grief, okay? And I went to blaming God. Like, how could you do this to me? I'm like, this child was a blessing, a miracle. It made me a better person. It made me closer to you. So why would you take that away? You know? Then think about the fact that, right, you got other people, they out here killing their kids, neglecting their kids, abusing their kids. But me, trying to be the best mother I can be. I'm reading parenting books, watching parenting documentaries, and all this type of stuff. And this happened to me, you know. So when that happened, it flipped me. It flipped me. I had been, before I had even found out that I was pregnant, I had already quit smoking weed. So I ended up going back to smoking weed. I started drinking heavy all the time. I started abusing my pain meds and prescriptions and stuff like that. I became violent and vile. I was just miserable. I did not want to go on, basically. It would be very, very hard for me to get to sleep. And then by the time I got to sleep, I did not want to wake up. When I would wake up, I was like, no. And I would just try, you know, to go back to sleep. It was just crazy. I even tried to use sex as a number from it. So I was just doing anything I could to get me numb, drunk, high, sex and stuff like that. And then with the guy who I was with, his father or whatever, that had became vile, because I didn't actually blame him, but I just still just was upset and felt like, okay, it's somebody's fault. So at that point, it was everybody's fault. It was mine, it was his, it was God's, it was everybody's fault. It was other people who didn't love their kids. It's your fault that my child. I was just very, very angry. So I would lash out at him. If I wasn't trying to have sex with him to numb it, then I was trying to fight him, you know. So he had to deal with a lot on that end. Then other people, of course, it just was a total mess. So I began to rebel against God. I didn't want to talk to God. I didn't want to go to church. Became just very bitter, very angry, very depressed and hateful and stuff like that. So God had to bring me to a point to where I could not turn any other way, because I was just avoiding him. And I just remember one day I had kind of got sick, but it wasn't the normal type of sick. It was the type of sick where I just was very, very weak and tired. I had to be still, laid down. It kind of felt somewhat the symptoms of like a flu, but I actually did not have like I had threw up a couple of times, but I really did not have the other flu symptoms, even though my body just felt weak and I was stuck in the bed. I was stuck in my bed for 3 days, and God had to get me still. Like, okay, it's time for me to intervene. He had to get me still. So I was laying down, not feeling well, for straight 3 days, and all he did was just minister to my heart and my mind. And I finally just went to him, and it wasn't in the angry, accusatory way, but it was just in the humble, painful way. Like, okay, look, this is why did all this have to happen? Why did all this have to transpire? You know, I just went on ahead because I had to be stuck. I was still, and I just cried, and I was asking him, you know, different questions, like, okay, was it my fault then, you know, or why did you choose to take him in? He ministered to me quite a few things on the hand and aspect of, it was not my fault. It was nothing that me or the child's father could have done to prevent it. It was nothing that we did to cause it. It was what was destined to be and to happen. And he ministered to the fact that, okay, this small child who had come to this world, and yes, that's a blessing, a miracle, had served his time and purpose. And everybody is not going to live this long life, and people pass, and it was just a lot. And he passed away from SIDS, which is sudden infant death, where a child, once they switch over into REM sleep, the deeper sleep, our brain is mechanically wired to tell the rest of our body, because as you go to sleep, certain parts of your body start shutting down, demobilizing, right? Because it's basically like sleep is a reboot of your body. So our brain sends a signal for our breathing and stuff like that to go on, like auto drive. And some children, when they go into that deeper sleep, it does not catch the signal. But anyway, so I had did some research, and over in certain African countries, they mentioned that they have the lowest rate of sudden infant death, children dying in their sleep, because they have co-sleeping. And it said that their mothers sleep next to the babies. And have you ever been walking with somebody and y'all just end up on the same foot pattern, or you laying down with your boo or whoever and y'all end up on the same breathing wave and stuff? It works like that, where you laying next to the child, up against the child, and them feeling your heartbeat, it keeps them mobilized. But anyway, one of the things I'm glad about, though, is my child was sleeping in the bed with me. Because for a minute I was thinking like, oh, I wish I would have kept him in the bed with me. The child's father had told me after, it was probably about like a week before the child passed away. So that my child passed away when he was 2 months old. So he was 7 weeks old when he told me, like, no, he can't sleep in the bed anymore. Put him into the bassinet. So, you know, I listened to him, of course, like, okay, fine, even though I was like, oh, I want to hold the baby, I want the baby to sleep with us. But I'm like, okay, fine, it's time. It's been 7 weeks. So I put the baby bassinet, and I'm so glad, though, that he told me to do that. Because if that baby would have passed, God is good. If that baby would have passed away while we were sleeping in the bed with that child, that would have put on so much more further guilt and feeling like, oh, I did something wrong. I smothered the baby to cover the pillow. So I just thank God, after I thought about it, like, yes, I thank you, God, that you had instructed him to tell me, like, no, put the baby in the bassinet. Because that would have been even more disastrous if that baby would have passed away in that bed. But I just want to speak with y'all, because that was one of the situations that caused me to rebel against God and go out. I was wilding. I was out partying all the time, which that ain't the first. That's the more so the first time. But I'm gonna tell y'all about this other story where I was going through a battle, a spiritual warfare battle, and it ended up causing me to turn and go out back into the world and get back wild. But yeah, I was going out partying all the time, going out fighting all the time. I was just wild, doing the most. Just really living a self-destructive lifestyle. And it wasn't until God put me in a place where I was still and had to acknowledge and turn to him and listen to him that I was able to get that healing and those answers and that peace and comfort that I had needed So I had turned away from God due to angriness, but I thank him so much that he is a God that, who is this calling? I thank him so much that he is a God that he's patient with us, and he loves us so much that we go through our different things and we do things against God intentionally, because sometimes we do things unknowingly, which is why he gives a lot of grace, a lot of mercy, and a lot of love, and cover a multitude of sins. But others, I was doing stuff intentionally, like, no, I'm mad at you, forget you, like that type of thing, which is crazy to do with a God. Like, you know what I'm saying, my ponytail pop, which is crazy to do with a God. But he was so kind of so merciful. Like, okay, he wants to be there for us. He wants to help us through it. He wants to minister to us. So I just thank him that he did come to me, because I wasn't going to come to him in it. And if I hadn't had to lay down for those 3 days, I wouldn't have came to him. I wouldn't have. And I wouldn't have gotten some of the comfort and healing that I needed to get back on the right track and to repair my relationship with God. And I just thank him for that. So I just wanted to share that story with y'all. It may help you in some type of way, and just so y'all can understand how my relationship works with God, the type of relationship we got, and the things that I have to struggle with, how sin can end up in your life, but you can still be a child of God or have a relationship with God. Because even when we turn around and call ourselves shutting him out, he's so loving and kind that he's still there waiting for us. Like, okay, baby, come on. So I just learned, that was one of the situations where I made the road hard.